Today we begin the 12th chapter. May this reading relax your mind and awaken your heart. We left off with our protagonist in a lodge up in the foothills of the Himalayas. She is going with Sid up to a sacred lake. My purchases were laid out on my bed: tent, sleeping bag, mini stove, whistle, high altitude pills, bear repellent, wool pants, rain pants, thermal underwear, shirts, gloves, hats, water purifier, pills, woolen socks, protein bars, Swiss Army knife, rope, compass, and an expensive lightweight backpack. Sid stuck his head in. Planning to scale K2? I might have overdone it, I said. I think I'll leave some of this here. This is not the Hilton, he said. You cannot leave anything here. We're picking up 2 porters at the trailhead. Bring everything, but use 2 backpacks, one for yourself and the other for the porters. A light rain was falling as we waited in the lobby for the taxi that would take us up to Sangam Chatti, the trailhead at the confluence of 2 rivers. I stood apart, alone, amid our luggage while Sid was engrossed in reading miscellaneous flyers and notices pinned on a board. A tinge of fear mixed in with guilt and regret ran through me. My disguise had been disrespectful to those holy monks who had probably saw through it. I had elicited money from Gerhardt by blackmailing him, and I had felt vindicated, almost happy, that the men who had unalived my associate Pepe and the girls had been unalived. What had I become? I was about to approach Sid to tell him that I could not continue when Mr. Joshi, in a smart grey homespun Nehru jacket and white trousers, came out of his office. This is the hotel keeper. He was followed by a young woman in a pale silk sari holding on to a small girl in a plaid dress edged with lace. The 3 must be on their way to a wedding, I thought, then understood that they had dressed up merely to see us off. My daughter and granddaughter, Mr. Joshi introduced them shyly. All 3 bent down and touched my feet. Here we go, I muttered, touching their heads absent-mindedly. Sid looked on bemused. For those that don't know, it's customary in India to touch the feet of someone you respect, such as a holy person. Our protagonist is not quite yet a holy person. She had dressed up as one to flee from an unfortunate situation. It then struck me that Joshi's deference to us could be because he regarded Sid as an influential in bringing foreign guests to this humble lodge. I dismissed this idea at once because I could not imagine that the author of that intriguing... Oh, I have to wait till my connection returns. Apologies, I think my internet disconnected for a moment. Hello, thank you. Yes, our protagonist had dressed up in holy attire to flee from an unfortunate situation. Here we go, I muttered, touching their heads absent-mindedly. Sid looked on bemused. It then struck me that Joshi's deference to us could be because he regarded Sid as influential in bringing foreign guests to this humble lodge. I dismissed this idea at once because I could not imagine that the author of that intriguing pamphlet would stoop to make friends and influence people solely for personal gain. Most likely it was his continued assumption that I was a holy person. Mr. Joshi, the exercises in your book are most challenging, I said with a laugh to put them at their ease. But you could have included an answer key. I was up half the night trying to work them out. The exercises were a question of what parts of Vedic knowledge had been discovered before thousands of years ago. No need for answer key, Mataji, he said with a knowing shake of the head. Answers are in questions only. Come, taxi is here. I like that. Answers are in questions only. The rain weakened to mist and fog as the taxi, a 30-year-old Fiat, crawled haltingly through forests of deodar and pine until we reached Sangam Chatti, more ruined than town. Less than a year ago, avalanches of segments of the mountain had careened down into the river, clogging it. The result was severe flooding inland. Half-hearted efforts at rebuilding could be seen here and there. As soon as we came to a halt, our porters, father and son, ran forward to meet us, and Sid introduced me to them. Ram Singh, the father, with leathery baked brown, creased cheeks and pan-stained teeth, grinned at Sid with affection. His son, Mohan, a teenager, sported one of those tapered haircuts with a sharp angular fringe and silver studs on the earlobes. Unlike his father's ragged vest, thin shirt, soiled pajamas, and laceless sneakers, he was in jeans and high tops. He would fit right in anywhere, Tokyo, New York, London, except for his exceedingly thin face. I slipped on my now more manageable backpack, my remaining load stuffed into my large new backpack, as well as a collection of pots, pans, stove, tents, fuel, and rations, were distributed between Sid, Ram Singh, and Mohan. My trek did not begin auspiciously. After we'd crossed the now deceptively calm river, one careful step at a time on a rickety iron bridge that had miraculously remained functional after the brutal weather, I confidently set off. But no sooner had I taken a few energetic strides than I hit a bed of loose stones, lost my balance, and rolled onto my backside. I clambered to my feet while rebuffing help from Sid and the porters, who I could see were suppressing smiles. I moved forward grimly, fixing my gaze on the path to avoid roots and other impediments as we began our climb to our first milestone, the village settlement of Agoda at an elevation of 6,000 feet. I had imagined the trek as a meditative yatra, a pilgrimage, but soon discovered that this treacherous cobblestone trail was the only means of travel from the trailhead to the remote villages that dotted the mountainside. At one pass, a full-scale wedding procession, accompanied by a line of 3 or 4 heavily loaded mules, stolidly assumed the right of way. Then a rambling herd of goats tended vaguely by a girl with a baby strapped onto her back came around a bend with no warning. Pilgrims, tourists, and villagers, all with the sole intent of keeping a firm footing, jostled against each other, shouting and swearing. I bravely kept up the pace set by the porters, but in just 2 hours I began to feel the altitude and was utterly spent. The porters hurried on, but Sid stopped frequently to point to a tenuously stretched out spider's web, barely visible in the fog, a delicate pale blue flower struggling out of a crevice, or a whistling thrush furiously turning over leaves and stones. These stops, I could see, were more to allow me to catch my breath than to educate me on the marvels of nature. The trail soon narrowed as it ran jaggedly between a sharp rise on one side and a precipitous cliff on the other, with the odd root or rock arranged precisely to trip one up. When I stopped to catch my breath, 4 college-age boys came suddenly upon us and shoved me aside. Intentionally, I thought, and strode ahead laughing. I could have easily stumbled down the steep ravine. Their smug, well-fed faces and designer jeans tagged them as rich, spoiled brats from the capital. My shorn head, monk's robes, and rudraksha beads apparently amused them. Sid witnessed the affront good-humoredly, and even exchanged a few pleasantries with them as they passed by. I brought up the incident later, but he shrugged off my irritation. They were just kids, he said. What was the big deal? My ordeal was not over. When I had lagged considerably behind Sid and the porters, a very large and hairy monkey blocked my path. I stood still. That is the position to take with snakes, I remembered hearing, but with monkeys? When had I taken my last rabies shot? If it scratched or bit me, I would need shots. Where would I get them? As these panicked thoughts raced through my mind, I resigned myself to the worst and relaxed. The monkey and I stared at each other, and it was as though I had managed to convey the notion that I meant no harm. It seemed to accept this and turned away, heading into the bushes to an infant who was delicately picking at a piece of fruit. A mother protecting her child, I walked on. By mid-afternoon that day, we reached an elevation of about 5,000 feet, where thick fog gave way to a hot, blazing sun, when the miracle of a tea shop appeared, replete with wizened crone bent over and blowing at a fire of twigs and dried leaves set between 3 stones, We took a break. Sid said something to the proprietor, and she broke into loud laughter, exposing dark gums and a few rotting teeth. With a glass of milky chai in hand, I settled on a stone bench facing the sun, with my back against a tree. In the distance was a grouping of low stone houses, surrounded by terraced paddies and reachable by a stone bridge festooned with flags. A picture-perfect configuration against a backdrop of towering snow-capped mountains. The scene before me was one of astonishing beauty, but I imagined there was great hardship for those who had lived there, scraping out a living from a meager produce of sweet potatoes and yak butter. How did they manage in the winter? Sid approached with a plate of fried pakoras, placed it on the bench and squatted on a slab nearby. The world's a maze, I said, and we are rats scrambling, hitting, biting, trying to make it to the exit. At the exit is the realization that the maze, you and the rats, are only an appearance in your awareness, he said. And upon awareness does everything disappear? I asked. Awareness does not erase the world, he said. It only untangles you from it. We'll pause our reading of Moksha Liberation there for now. I look forward to continuing our dear protagonist's story of her yatra, her pilgrimage up into the Himalayas next time.